Hello and welcome to another live episode edition of Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things, the podcast show. I'm your host, Carrie Roberts, and today I have an IBM executive global tech leader and a wonderfully successful-minded individual, Mr. Pavel Ferreri. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Carrie, it's a real pleasure to be here with you and to have, again, an opportunity to talk with you, right? Going back to how we met through another corporate technology podcast, and that triggered, being here. So it's my pleasure.
Yeah. And so we're talking a lot about you as a person and then kind of going into some of your mindset techniques and tips. So I want to start in the beginning. You grew up in Mexico, and I would love to know, what were you like as a kid? What was kind of your family life, your culture life? What type of values were instilled in you as a young man?
Oh, well, yeah. So grew up in Mexico City. What I was as a kid was trouble, and I would get in trouble in school and be kicked out of many of them. And family values. I was very fortunate to both of my parents be extremely nice and kind people with me and with others. And so I have memories of my childhood of being a happy kid. With my parents, I was a single child. I was always an extrovert, very much of an extrovert. And if there is a story that can capture that, my mother likes to tell a story on the first day that they took me to preschool, right? I was, 3, 4 years old, I don't know. And so many kids were crying outside and the parents didn't know what to do. My parents didn't know what was going to happen with me. So as they, let me at the gate of the school, I go in and they're trying to kind of see there what's happening. And I walk in and then I start to get there with some kids. And then my mom likes to say that she would just see me doing like this and talking with my hands, talking to a bunch of kids. And I was perfectly happy and I was kind of in my element, socializing. And kind of from there on, that's the kind of the story of my life, right? Over the years, I've had the opportunity and I've proactively looked for it to live in different places. And so multiple different cities. And I've moved a lot, and every time I get to a place, I've been fortunate to be able to make good friendships right away.
I love that. They always say that how we are as young kids is similar to how we are as adults. So that's funny that even at 3 or 4 years old, talking with your hands and very excited to be around people. I absolutely love it. The thing that was so interesting that I had learned about you, and I had done some research for another show that we had did, was that you were a TV host for 5 years. And I want to know how that happened. What type of show was it? How did you get that? Like, were you trying to become a TV host? Were you trying to get into acting, or did it just kind of happen? Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I was not proactively trying to get there. As any teenager, I was doing multiple things. I started working out since I was very young. So in those years, I was extremely fit. And so that led to, randomly thing would tell me, hey, there's going to be this thing, you should do this commercial. And then the mother of one of my friends had a model agency and it's like, hey, you should come and do this. And so kind of very organically, they started to invite me to do these things where suddenly, I would get paid much more than you would as going and working in a restaurant or something, right? And so, fortunately, I had that, this just kind of happened. And one thing led to another. And again, I was, very, I would say, articulate. So that gave me the opportunity to then do some MC kind of jobs. They would say, it's going to be this event. And they would tell me, why don't you, could you be the MC? Sure, I'll do it, right? And then I started doing those things. And suddenly, couple of years went by doing that, and an opportunity came up for they needed a host for a live space on TV, on national television in Mexico, with an audience of many millions of people, live 9 p.m. Channel 2, which was kind of the main, one of the main channels, like saying here Channel 4, right, where you see the Today Show, that kind of thing. And so I went to the castings, and long story short, I got the opportunity. I was the fit for what they were looking for, And it was a very small space, like 5 minutes really that I had. It was 5 minutes live on national television, right, at the age of 18. Or 17, 18, I had just turned 18, I think. And so I did it, and it was every single day, and I was doing, many things of, games and entertainment and things like, imagine like Price is Right kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I started doing then, the national, the equivalent of the kind of the lotto, the lotto here, like the, lottery games. And we would invite like some, celebrities to come and talk, and I would ask them some questions. And it was a brief space. Definitely was a fun experience. And I was, again, very young. So that opened many doors for me. Meeting a lot of people, being invited to a lot of parties, and it just helped with my social life a lot. And it also gave me the opportunity to have an income with, without having to go through kind of a regular, kind of part-time job, being 4 or 6 hours somewhere. So I did that through all my college, and that actually paid for my college. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a great experience. It was fun. And then people would tell me, "Are you planning going like into like soap operas and things?" And I really, I don't know, that was not my calling in life. And so I was always curious about many different things from science and technology and philosophy and art and many other things. So I have kind of more intellectual aspirations, and I followed my calling, and so I pursued different things. After doing that for about 5 years, I did many things. And by the way, let me comment something, because sometimes you hear people's story and they give you the edited version, right?
Yes.
Clean, beautiful, story of progressive success. And here I am, right? I'm such a successful person. And I think the reality for most normal people, and you saw me one of them, is, I like to say, I try to be like a swan, right? That you see it, on a lake, very calm, very elegant on the outside, like nothing's happening. Everything is under control. I got this. It's really underneath the surface. You're pedaling like crazy on the ground, right? And I think that's the story of my life, right? You need to keep it, cool and classy on the outside and keep control, even under difficult circumstances. But the reality is a lot of, ups and downs, right? So kind of the real story is after 5 years, I lost that job, right? And suddenly, well, I don't have a job. And then, so because I could tell you, well, I finished this, and then I made the decision to I lost a job. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a job. And then I came up with an idea, actually as part of some kind of project, I was about to finish, college, and, to start a business, right? And, turn my house into the office. But that had up, again, one thing is the edited version, and this is kind of the real version. The real version is I started, it kind of didn't work, but eventually I managed to get some kind of deal and make some money, but it wasn't enough money for me to make my living. So again, I was always kind of working out since I was very young. And again, those times I was like, real fit. So, I went to a gym, and it's a nice gym chain in Mexico, and I started working as a personal trainer in the mornings, right? These are, I guess, unadvertised parts of my life.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, because I think you're right. I think so many people, that's part of why I've done this show for so long. They do this like, I was here and now I'm here, and they forget the middle. And I think it's interesting, you kind of got this great and lucky opportunity at 18 years old to be on national television. So even if it was a small segment for 5 years, helps you pay for college, people get to know who you are, and then that opportunity ends. And you say, okay, I want to start a business. But as people know, that's not easy. And you start doing personal training. I was a personal trainer myself, so I know that lifestyle as well. Did you, after that show, so you're young, you're what, like 23 or so, you said about 5 years. So you decided to start a business. Did you have in your mind that it's going to be easy, or you knew like, no, I need to do something else, I'm going to start training?
Life let me know. It's that simple, right? When there is, no money anywhere, and there are bills, and you need to do stuff. it's very, very, very rapidly you realize, well, this is not going to be easy, and there is no big inheritance coming my way, right? So you need to do something. And so again, I tried different things. Look, I mean, I tried so many different things. Like I sold for one of these multi-level pyramid stuff, right? Schemes, right? But this was not a scam. It was just, one of these,
Yeah, these pyramid schemes. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Supplements, right? And the people who started, levels 1 to 3 are making a lot of money, and I was like level 11 or whatever, and I was just barely making some money from that. But it was a good experience, right? On how to sell. I think everything you do in life, if you have the right mindset, you will learn from it and grow. So I did that, and again, the personal training, which was very tough for me because clients wanted to have the sessions 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and 8, right? So I need to wake up at 5:30, run to the gym, work 3 hours there, and then I was still in college, so go to school and then do my own workout at night. I did kickboxing for many years, for like 12 years. So I would have my kickboxing classes. I mean, I had a very active life and a very socially active life as well all the time, and I managed to fit everything there. So yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's good that you mentioned that, because I think that's a very common thing in general, but definitely in your 20s. And I know that you had a business for a while, and then you decided to move to the US and to do your master's degree. Was coming to the US something that you always wanted to do? Like, what kind of made you change your mind to say, okay, I want to do something else. I want to get more schooling. I want to live somewhere else. Where did that come from?
And so it was a process, I think, like everything else in life.
Mm-hmm.
It was not one day I woke up and said I want to go to the US. But it was a process, it was a series of things. And after doing, the many different things, from the castings to the working out, the personal training to the multi-level, I did other things. I found an opportunity, for example, to get exposure to the foreign exchange market, right, known as Forex. It's a speculation on currency markets, and I got fascinated by that, and I got the opportunity to get involved with that, and using my skills to sales skills to attract investors, and I got involved in that, and I made some good money doing that while I still had my business. So this is a process of like more than 6 years, and while I was doing all of that, eventually my business started to take shape, and I started to get clients. And then I joined some national association it was an outdoor advertising business. Joined the national association, made the right relationships, and that led to eventually being part of a team that worked for being the board of directors. And at the same time, I'm in the board of directors. I was the youngest guy. I would like to think of myself like the pet kind of guy. It was really very senior business leaders, business owners with 200, 500 employees. Like really large companies.
Yeah.
And kind of me with my little business on my living room, with me and some of my friends working for me. So, but I managed to kind of create the right personal branding and sell myself properly and kind of get in there. And that opened doors for incredible experiences, right? So this was a very, very solid organization where we would invite leaders in the industry every month. We had a large event. We invited people. I had lunch with people like Carlos Slim, which is the wealthiest man in Mexico, and for some time it was the wealthiest man in the world, and now he's kind of in the top 10. So like a major tycoon, and I had lunch with him twice, one-on-one talking like that as part of this association. And many business leaders, right, like owners of like large media companies, representatives of the global, advertising agencies in the world with their presence in Mexico. So that gave me a lot of exposure. I still kept running my little business. And kind of, dealing with the challenges of a small business that sometimes where, for example, I would get more work, but there were many operational inefficiencies that led to not necessarily ending up with a higher profit, right?
Right.
So working more but not making more money. And dealing with all of those challenges, there was great learning. It was good enough, I may say, to save, enough money to make the decision to say, and this is kind of the whole process of getting to the point where I said, well, you know what? I've done good enough to have some, good savings so that I can actually kind of close the doors of the business and go and invest in myself. I wanted to go and invest in, getting my education. I considered going to Spain. I applied to different schools. I got accepted in, good schools. And at the end, I made the decision that it was a good experience for me to come, live in Boston and, come here to the US and get my MBA here, learn the American way of doing business, right? And so I made that decision and, closed the business, was able to come here and again, kind of sponsor my own living expenses for about 2 years without working, on a full-time MBA. And so being here in the US, living in Boston, was an incredible window to the world in many ways, exposure to different, not just American culture, but different cultures from all the people, from all the international students from all around the world. And beyond kind of the obvious of, learning corporate finance and corporate accounting and marketing and things like that in the MBA, I got the exposure to realize that of pretty much all my class, and many people in my class had already been, in senior positions for global companies, right? Whereas I had just been, the manager of my own little business that I started, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had the opportunity to learn from people with much more experience than me. And I realized that if there was one area where I was probably the worst of my class, right? Of like 70-something people, was technology, right? I just didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to use, web browsing, do an email attachment. That was the worst. And I realized that was important. And it was like a moment for me to say, wow. So pretty much I turned that weakness into an opportunity to make it a strength and kind of look at me, 15 years later, and here I am working for one of the global leaders in the technology industry. And, I'm giving conferences about technology and innovation and so on. So if there is a silver lining from that, is that anything that you can perceive as a weakness that you have is just a weakness in your mind at the moment, at that specific point in time, right? Your life is like a movie. And if you look at that picture and you don't have those, qualifications in that specific picture, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to build them over time if you consistently focus on them. And that's what I did. And there is actually a very interesting story, as a result of that, right? Of that kind of newly found passion for technology and kind of the implications of technology on all aspects of life. It was really fascinating for me. And I am an evolutionist, so I am very science-based. And so technology and seeing how it really started to transform all aspects of life. And kind of to talk about that is so obvious right now, in 2020.
Right.
But, 2005, it wasn't as pervasive as it is today, right? Technology everywhere, everything is technology. The largest technologies and the companies in the world are tech companies. 15 years ago, the largest industry was, of course, financial services, banking. Today, the largest industry by market cap is technology, by far, right? So the world has changed, and I guess I placed my bets in the right direction very clearly, right?
One of the questions I have is that you were talking about you can turn this weakness into a strength. And I'm curious because I've always thought there's kind of this difference, right? That I always feel like we're all great at something and we should put more effort into that. There are certain weaknesses that we're just not going to be good at or we don't even like. And then there are certain weaknesses that we want to be good at and we can work hard at. So how do you differentiate between a weakness as something that I should kind of let that go and focus on my strengths versus this is a weakness, but I actually want to improve on it?
Well, it may depend on your personal aspirations in life, right? What is your calling? And so you need to focus on what's going to serve you. And so if you have a weakness or a perceived weakness that it may not serve you within the framework of your life plan and your goals and your vision, then, well, don't waste your time, right? I mean, I am so bad at so many things, right? I'm not gonna try. So I was like, yeah, I understand. I'm aware. I don't know. I'm bad at playing, soccer because I never played soccer, and I'm fine with it. It's all right. And but for me, realizing, hey, I'm bad at using technology, and I kind of realized 15 years back that no, hold on, this looks like the world, because that was the transition where, like, people would send you an email or a text message, or there was these deeper things that I don't know if you even remember those.
Yes.
But so, like, it's like people, for example, send an email. There was that process where we say, okay, why would you send me an email? Why don't you call me on my cell phone? Right? We were figuring it out, right? At that time, many things. So, but I realized that, hey, technology is here to stay, and it's just going to get bigger. It's going to be a bigger part of our lives. And here we are now, 15 years later, where we're like talking to technology, artificial intelligence bots on a regular basis when you call, customer support or whatever. So the world has changed, but so that's the differentiation, right? Weaknesses that are not going to serve you if you invest the time, well, don't do it. Like I love languages. I speak 5 languages, 4 of them pretty well. I don't speak Chinese. Would I like to speak Chinese? Yes, I would love to speak Chinese. But it would take me, at least 10,000 hours of my life to learn Chinese. And I'm fine without it right now, right? Because I speak other languages that serve me well. So you need to pick your battles on kind of which weaknesses you want to invest on, right? To turn them into strengths. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I just wanted to share real quick. Alejandra says she's very proud of you and what you're doing as well. You do speak 5 languages, which and you speak a lot of the European languages, and I understand there's a lot of similarities. I only speak 1, very little Spanish. But how did you learn 5 languages? I mean, was it something you grew up with in school, or you just chose, I'm going to speak Italian, I'm going to learn it?
Yeah, no, I guess it was a combination of things. So by the way, both of my parents are European. So raised in Mexico. I was born and raised in Mexico. But so it kind of comes in the family, which is very normal. In Europe, people speak 3, 4 languages. So my mother's father spoke 7 languages. He was a writer.
Wow.
And he spoke 7 languages. I wanted to beat him, and I haven't.
Not yet. Still time.
Yes. So that's an exceptional case. But my mother spoke 3 of them. Her siblings as well. So my mother, spoke French. So they actually sent me to a French school when I was a kid in Mexico. So I spoke French, and she would like to speak French when I was a kid, and I found it kind of awkward. Why do you speak French to me? We can't speak Spanish, that kind of thing. But so I learned French, and everything, and then my father would speak Italian, kind of a little bit to just kind of show off and sound interesting. But so I learned a little bit from him. And so I kind of grew up at least, knowing, Spanish and French, and just randomly a little bit of Italian, not necessarily speaking it, but kind of hearing it there, here and there. And then, so those are 3. And then, you go and you study English, just like people study Spanish here, and they really don't speak it, but they kind of take Spanish. You take English in Mexico, and you don't really speak it, but you kind of know it, right? And so I knew a little bit of English, and then my grandparents from my mom, they were Portuguese, so I kind of heard it. Long answer is, it was kind of there in my life, that this kind of multilingual kind of thing. And then eventually I realized that it was a cool thing, right?
Yeah. And a very helpful thing from a work perspective, a life perspective. I mean, it provides so many more opportunities for you to communicate.
It opens doors to the world, and like I'm an avid reader. I read like crazy.
I read. Did it say you read a book you read 1 book a week?
And well, again, that's in average. Yeah, so in average, I read about 40 to 50 books in a year, which is almost a book per
1
week.
a week.
There have been weeks where I read 3 or 4 books, right? And there have been days when I have a flight, from here to Europe, and I read an entire quick book in 1 sit. And then there are weeks, 2, 3 weeks where I don't read a book. So, but in average, 40 to 50 books a year, yes. Which, when you look, long term over, the many years of my life, I'm 44 years old today. So I
wait, today?
Yeah, I'm 44 years old.
Wait, today is your birthday?
No, well, not today. I actually,
Okay.
last
I was
Saturday.
like, oh, that's extra special. Okay. Well, wait a second.
Time, yes.
What's interesting is that you said since you were 3 or 4 years old, you were an extrovert. And I feel like people always think of people who read as much as you're describing it are more introverted. Do you feel like that's like a side of you, or is it something you're doing like normally when you're traveling, or you like that kind of alone time and time to just kind of really engage and learn on your own?
I have that duality in my personality, definitely, and I'm aware of it. I'm an extremely social person. I love being, with people and meeting new people. Speaking in public, I'm very comfortable. At the same time, I enjoy my time alone, and I have many of those characteristics of like the introvert perhaps as well, which is I'm very cerebral, very intellectual. I love to kind of go deep in things and understand, kind of dissect concepts, understand them. Actually, when we were talking about languages, for example, something extremely nerdy about me, and I have many nerdy things, is, for example, I thought it would be incredible to be able to read, the comedy from Dante Alighieri in Italian, right? And I did. It was fantastic, right? Read Cervantes in Spanish, and read Shakespeare in English, and I read some other books in Portuguese and so on, which is the language in which I am the weakest. But in any case, the point is I have those kind of nerdy things of so I can be all day out in front of 100 people talking nonstop, but then I need to take that time to replenish, physically, mentally, emotionally, and intellectually. I need to be intellectually stimulated constantly, right? So if I'm not reading a book, I'm reading something, I'm learning something all the time. That's a constant in my life.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I'm very extroverted, but I do like that time to just be or journal or read or listen to something. And I think it's equally as important. One of the things you and I talked about briefly, but I'd love for you to talk about more, is that, like you said, you kind of had this weakness of technology. Then you realized it's a real asset to be great at technology. And you kind of make this, thing in your head that says, I want to work for Microsoft. That becomes the one thing. And you said you applied maybe around 300 times to work for this company. Why this company, and what were you doing 300 times? Like, were you just sending in resumes? Were you talking to people? Like, what did you do differently that you think eventually got their attention for you to work there as well?
Yes, it's a long story. So, right? But so why Microsoft? So once I set my mind and I got this passion, like, wow, technology is my thing, right? And I didn't really know much about the industry, right? I didn't even know who was, companies like Oracle or SAP or other companies, right? I knew so little, and with little that I knew about the industry, Microsoft was and continues to be a household name, right? And actually today they're the largest company in the world, number one in Fortune 500. And they were there in the top, 50 at the time as well. And so, I like to think big, and I said, hey, I'm going to go and work for the best in the industry, right? And so I remember we had they called it career counseling, services, MBA school, and they would provide, they have these experts that would come and advise and review your resume and tell you how to do it. And so strategies for looking for a job and so on. And of course, I guess there are people who kind of go like cowboys and they just try to see what they get and where they land. I've always thought of myself as a sniper in everything I do. So
very direct, one area.
I focus on one target. I study it like a wolf, right? I understand it from all the angles and then say, that's where I'm going. That's what I do. And so once I set my mind and said, okay, I'm gonna go work for this industry after my MBA. That's what I want to do. By the way, I didn't come here to come and live in the US. I came here to study, go back and reopen my business and do it better. That was my original intention. It's not like I came here to stay here. But being here, I found it like an incredible opportunity again to learn. So I say, I'm gonna work in the US for 2 years after business school. And then, you meet people and you build your life here and here I am. And so, but the point being is that once I set my mind for that, I remember the people from career counseling saying, "Oh, Pavel, you need to set realistic expectations." And I mean, think about it. I had never, worked in the U.S. My accent was stronger than it is today. Coming from Mexico, zero industry experience. And, it's like, come on, be realistic. Look, shoot for something more, have other options. And I decided to not be realistic. I decided to focus on what I wanted to do. And pretty much I focus on understanding the industry, focusing on that company, looking at all the available jobs, and trying to land interviews in my mind, knowing, once I realized that, it's like, hey, this is not going to be easy, right? But knowing that I could learn about process, kinds of questions that they asked, kinds of things that they were looking for. There's so many things that you can learn and then kind of come back and prepare. Right? So in an interview, they would ask me about certain, technology. Are you aware of, whatever, infrastructure technologies? I have no idea. I would go on a study and be prepared. So for the next interview, I would know that. And they would ask me about, how my experience in Mexico would be relevant here, and how, things about my personality and this and that. And these kind of tricky questions about, how would you solve this problem, right? Things like that. And so I think that the value point, and kind of, if there is any value for others in listening to this, is that when you approach a problem where you perhaps are not kind of at the level where you would want to be, right? You can take it as a growth problem for you, right? Where you're going to invest in getting what it takes, preparing yourself, and coming back, for a second round, and being kind of closer, failing fast, often, and purposefully moving towards your target until you get there and until it works, right? And, my personal experience is that, here I am, right? The opportunity opened up for me, and actually, working for the largest, I got some leadership potential program that they had, and they hired me there, and I started right away working for some of their largest clients, getting involved in like multi-million-dollar deals right away, and doing kind of, helping the account owners, account directors with kind of MBA-like, return on investment assessments and things like that. But that was my entry into the industry. I put all my soul and heart and energy into it, and I learned, and eventually I became good at it, right? And those are one of those many things in life that, over time, when I think about self-confidence, which I think is a very important element for any person, right? Whoever you are, whatever you do, having the right amount of self-confidence where you're not arrogant or overconfident, because that's not going to serve you, but where you don't sell yourself short, or, as I like to say, disqualify yourself from opportunities that are there in the world, right? So I always say this to myself, and when I talk to others, give advice. Now I have, mentees and things like that. So never disqualify yourself, right? Let others tell you no, but you go take the shot. And if you're gonna fail above your league. Don't fail here, right? It's like, this is it. And if you're not failing, it's because you're being mediocre in your aspirations, right? If you're not uncomfortable, something is wrong with what you're doing, right? There is something from IBM, right? That our previous CEO, Gino Rometty, used to say a lot. There is no growth in comfort, right? So if you're comfortable, if you're not failing, if you're not like a little uncomfortable with what's going to happen, it means that you're just already not pushing yourself, and that's not good. So push yourself, and if you're going to fail fast and fail above your league. I think that's important. And it's been the experience of my life that I failed above my league in many different dimensions of my life, multiple times, but to then just kind of end up succeeding, right? And many people talk about the story of, oh my God, the inventor of the light bulb. I just went blank. Edison, my God, Thomas Edison, right? And so many people talk about, hey, he failed 1,000 times, right, before he finally succeeded. So many people kind of who fail, who take the failure and say, okay, I failed at this, are because they didn't go that enough to continue failing and getting a little closer, so improving their game until they finally succeed. And that's a winner's mentality. I like to think and say, again, to myself and others, I talk to myself a lot internally.
Same.
Yes, I mean, I guess we're all a little bit insane. It is right about that, about that point of failing, right? Don't disqualify yourself, right? And don't limit yourself from the possibilities that life has to offer, right? Go and try, go and fail, go and get better, and eventually you will get there, right? And so as I have experienced that in very many different aspects of my life, I mean, I can tell you about, when I started working out, for example, because I was puny, right? I was very, very slim kid. And then I started working out, and then I started going to, kickboxing. I remember when I first joined the kickboxing class, and my professor would be like, I was too, like, they would punch me and I would like fly, right? And, over time, and I was, behind in the class, 5, 6, 7 years later, I was one of the best, right? I was good, right? And 10 years later, I was very good. And so that's how you build that, back to the point of building the right confidence, right? The best way to build confidence is by earning it. Any confidence that is not being earned in any aspect of your life is superfluous. It's not real, right? It's an illusion in your mind. If you think you're good, that's kind of arrogance. You need to go and test yourself against the world and fail and see where you rank with the world and earn that humility to know that you're not the best. And even if you're really, really good, there are people who are better, right? And so earn that humility and then slowly start to earn your way up through the ranks in life. And in all aspects of my life, it's been like that. So now that I've scored for myself, successes in all of those aspects of my life, I built a healthy level of confidence.
Yeah. And I think talking from a professional perspective, again, those watching and listening who don't know, you're hearing his story. You worked for Microsoft and Oracle and Salesforce. Now you work at a very high level at IBM. For people, especially now, a lot of people are out of work and they're applying and they're struggling and they don't have money and they're feeling very depressed. And so their mindset is not in the right space at all. Where do you suggest that they start to get their mindset a little bit more positive and confident to kind of just even start applying or doing the right thing? Because I do think mindset is the first thing that matters most.
Mindset is such an important and beautiful concept. And so to answer your question, and I may get lost in my answer talking about mindset, so let me ask you a question again. Right? But yeah, so mindset is the place to start. So start inside your head, right? Because that's where everything starts. And so, some people may immediately say, hey, this is like fluff stuff, right? I want something more kind of tangible. Well, there's nothing fluffy in mindset. Mindset, and me being in technology, being a passionate technologist, I love to relate humans with computers, right? And a very simple analogy is, we all know we can see a computer, and that computer is hardware and software working together, and one without the other is useless, right? But together have such an incredible power, right? The combination of hardware, which gives us the interface to use all of the software that is there, that it has unlimited possibilities. Right? So in this exact same way, the humans, right, are that combination of body and mind, and one without the other is useless too. And so so back to the computer analogy, there is one very important ingredient between the hardware and the software, and that is the operating system, which is a piece of software, right? But the operating system is what you can think of as the master program, right? It's the program on top of which all the other software programs run. And if there is no operating system, there is no way for you to kind of connect from the hardware to the software programs. The operating system is extremely important. And so in the exact same way, us humans, that operating system, right, is your mindset, is your mindset. So if in your mind, you for example, have a set of mental limitations, right, about your capabilities, about your circumstances, about yourself, you are just not going to allow yourself. You're going to disqualify yourself from trying many different things, right? So the mindset, which in very simple terms is the state of your mind, right, and is that master program that operates everything else that you do. Everything else that you do is operated by that mindset. And that mindset actually, kind of right within the same framework of your mindset, you have kind of you can think of like this, software program in your mind that is your mindset. And then you have your self-identity, right? Which is that image of yourself, of who you are. And we'll have it, consciously or unconsciously. And it's better to make it conscious and be very fully aware of who you are, right? To bring it kind of forward, to rationalize it and understand, right, in that self-identity, who you are. And that's built based on your early experiences from life, right? All your memories, all how you grew up, where you grew up, all of your, physical characteristics that define, and you know who you are. You know if you're tall or short, slim or fat or fit, whatever it is, right? You know kind of where what's your situation, and financially as well. If you grew up in a poor family, middle class, rich, super rich, and all of those things kind of build that self-identity that you have, right? You know what you know and what you don't, and all of those things, right? So all of that self-identity is extremely important, and it's very important to know, here is the very valuable point, that it's not fixed. It is not fixed. So whatever you were before or whatever you are today doesn't limit you forever. Right? Doesn't define what you will be tomorrow. I've transformed myself purposefully, right? From the TV years to the having my own business, to moving to another country and reinventing myself here and establishing myself here and working a different industry and so on, right? So you can define who you are, and I have already other cycles of reinvention that are work in progress as we speak, right? I've become a passionate investor, and I can talk about that, and that's a cycle that is running there, and so you bend yourself, and so long answer back to your question, I didn't forget it, which is, so what would someone do? I'll share a personal story. After that, dream job of working for Microsoft, back in 2006, the crisis hit in 2008 and 9, and at the end of 2010, end of 2010, let's say.
Yeah, about the same time.
I got laid off, right? At the time, I felt even embarrassed to say this. I'm perfectly come to terms with that. At the time, it was horrible. It destroyed my self-identity, who I was, my source of income, my what I was doing, my purpose, everything. It was terrible. And on top of that, we are in the middle of a national crisis. Companies are not hiring. I didn't have money. I was paying like $1,000 a month for my MBA. I was paying a car loan that I had bought, and I had to pay for my living expenses. And as usual in life, things happen. My mother was divorcing from her second husband, and my father fell sick, and he had to stop working on his small business that he owned. So my father stopped producing money. My mother was in a bad financial situation too, an emotional situation, and I had to provide support for emotional and financial support for both of them. And here I am unemployed, and for the first time when both of my parents need me, I'm not going to tell, well, sorry, I lost my job, right? So I needed to step up and be there for them. And I managed to make it work. And I kept telling my parents for like 8 or 9 months, that I was living, at the time I was living in Chicago then. And, hey, how's life? I was like, hey, work is amazing. I'm happy. Everything is good. I didn't tell them I've been laid off for months, right? And I was sending money to both of them, supporting and emotionally and being there, while again, like a swan, right? Pedaling underneath the surface, making things work. It was tough. Eventually, I couldn't pay my rent. I mean, I was really in a bad situation. But I said, I'm not gonna fail. Right? I'm not failing, and I'm not gonna accept failure. And actually, sharing something, I at the time, I get to a point where like really I had to stop, with my lease, and I ended up asking friends to let me live with them. So I live in, for a few months in friends, living rooms or whatever, guest rooms, and very nice. Again, I built good relationships that kind of stepped in and helped out, and but tough times, very tough times. But I kept focused and I continued believing in myself. And if there is something that we've learned is that no matter how tough things get, there's always a way. There is always a way. And this crisis today is no different from the crisis in 2008. And as bad as it may feel, and it does feel for someone who has lost their job, it felt as bad for those who lost their job, 10 years back. And somehow we managed to survive, different people in different ways. But there is always a way. And so there are so many stories of people who have, come back stronger from it. So just focus on your self-growth, have very specific goals, build very specific routines, right? Don't lose the routine of doing basic things like exercise, your sleep rhythms, your nutrition, keeping your circle of support. This is when you need it the most. And don't stop, focused on your job search, which is a full-time job, right? So if you're not, if you need from, that income. I mean, I've heard of people who, say like, hey, yeah, I applied, to this job once or twice. It's like, no, I mean, it's a full-time job until you find a way. And if you need to do something, whatever it is, alternative jobs, go do it, right? And go make it work.
Yeah, I wonderfully said, and thank you for sharing that story. I think, in the time we've talked, I think sometimes you see the titles next to your names or the companies you've worked for, and it feels like, oh, this person is like way up here. But I think it's also an element of you, and you talked about this before, or last time we spoke together, about the humbleness of remembering where you came from and what you've done and who you are. You're showcasing that you're somebody who definitely works hard, put in the effort is what you're saying, really understand that your self-identity can change, your mindset can change, and to keep pushing forward. And I think, for people listening, I think the challenging thing is like, people think they're alone in feeling those ways, but it's not. If you talk to other people, everybody has either been through it, is going through it, or will go through it, is what I always say. And it makes you feel a little bit better about what's going on. When you are, I don't know if you've done any hiring for where you work or in the past, when you or anyone at your team is looking for people to work for you, you're looking at resumes, you're interviewing, are there certain things, you're big on personal branding too, that makes somebody stand out, in a genuine way, not where they're lying or fabricating, but what are some ways that people could kind of stand out in their resume or in their interviews so that they can get a potential opportunity?
I think much more than the resume, right? And now more than ever, everybody is, evolving in the way we, look at talent and potential. And certainly, in specialized industries, specialized experience is very relevant. It's necessary, right? In many specialized industries. But beyond, certain degree of experience for certain types of roles. Beyond that, if there is something that stands out, is enthusiasm. As simple as it may sound, but showing that, I don't like the term so much, but like hunger, right? People like to say, right? Showing that through desire to come and give you 100%. That passion, and again, backed up by other things, right? But that can be a very, very important differentiator. Having the enthusiasm, the passion that comes through your body expression, through the way you talk, through showing how you've done your research, right? So you're gonna talk to a company and,
Yes.
and you didn't even make the effort to do the basics, right? When I've interviewed for jobs, I mean, I go very, very, very thoroughly and very far, right? Interviewing the kind of researching the people I interview with, the company, the industry, current events, their technologies. Like, I mean, you need to show that you made the effort and that you're seriously interested. And go back to the sniper. If you're a cowboy, you're just shooting here and there. You come, you're not prepared. But if you're preparing, 30, 40 hours, full hours, like over the course of 2 or 3 weeks for one interview, when you have it, you'll knock it out of the park. And they'll say, well, oh my God, this guy knows things about my company I didn't know, right? You study the history of the company. Who were the founders of the company? Why? What's the values, the principles, this? And you mentioned things, and I've had many conversations, right, where I've said things that I was like, oh, really? Yeah, really. That's what your company is doing right now, right? And so when you bring that level of enthusiasm, passion, and knowledge, it's not just fluffy enthusiasm, but this backed up by knowledge, the preparation, the hard work that comes behind it. That combination, even if you don't have the experience, but you say, listen, you can look at someone in the eye and say, I am determined to be the best at this, right? You give me the opportunity, I will put my 110%, I'll exceed expectations. And by the way, this is my plan in writing, right? I prepare this, 30, 60, 90, day, working plan, which I've done for everything. That's, for me, is like a given. But people don't do that, right? So this is my working plan, right? So it's not just because people say oh, passion, it's like fluffy. I'm not talking about fluffy passion. I'm talking about show your passion with a written plan that is very thorough, very relevant. That's the kind of passion that I'm talking about. Where you say, I don't have the experience, but oh boy, I'll put the work. And people will say it, will see it, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I actually, I've done that too. And it's interesting because even whether I've done it for a job or for a potential client, even if it doesn't pan out, what I always find is that I actually learn a lot more, or I'm like, oh, actually now this is organized for the next thing. Like it's never a loss. So I think there's always kind of something to be won as well. Someone says passion is very important. Yes, we agree. Sharing some love here as well. I talk about this on LinkedIn a lot too. Some people, I don't know if I'm sure you have this because you work for IBM. People send you these messages to sell something real quick or a quick connection, and they wonder why it's not working. And, is there any way to, when people are on LinkedIn, whether they're looking for a job or a sale, how you like to be approached or how you think people should approach others on LinkedIn so that you can actually create a real connection with someone you don't know?
Again, there are no rules, right? Everyone has different things work for different people. I am a very direct person.
Yep.
And, people are really busy, executives, people who have the hiring potential, really busy doing many other things. So sometimes, and I see some very creative and elegant and classy ways that people have done to me now, sending me very nice, trying to build a relationship on LinkedIn with me. I appreciate it. I see what they're doing. And because I have empathy, a lot of empathy for others, and because I've been there, I get it, and I'm nice. But in reality, be direct, and that's the way I do it. So when I wanted a job, how I landed my job at IBM, I knew I wanted to work for IBM, I knew I wanted to move to California from Chicago, and I looked for IBM executives, right? I reached out to a few vice presidents at IBM, without knowing them. And I sent a very simple, very brief note. And one of them replied to me. I interviewed, and here I am, right? 5 years later. But my note said something like this. So, hello, I am extremely interested in an opportunity with IBM. Specifically, would love to work in your cloud division and be relocated to California. If you could look at my background, I think I'm qualified. Simple, to the point. That's it.
And right? Confident. There's a lot of confidence there too, where you're almost like, I want to check it out, see what this person's about.
Yes. And so literally there it is, boom. And next thing I know, on one of those emails, some vice president at IBM replied back to me. And I remember the email. He said, as a matter of fact, I do, and talk to these guys. And he sent it to people, and I eventually had like pretty much two managers who wanted to hire me, right? In California, in the cloud division with IBM, like 3 weeks later. And so it was incredible. And it being direct, being prepared, but that's just my style. There are different styles for different people, right? And then being, persistent. If someone doesn't reply to you, don't say. I've heard people say like, "Yeah, I applied to that company, but it didn't work." Well, it didn't work. You apply one time. Go and apply 100 times, right? Go reach out to different people. Reach out to the people in HR. Reach out to the hiring managers. Reach out to the directors. To potential peers. Get in. If that's really what you want, you need to be a sniper.
Keep, my dad has always told me, he's like, you keep reaching out until they tell you to stop. And I think it's true, because a lot of people don't, they're busy, they don't see it. It makes a ton of sense. If people want to connect with you or they want to follow you on social media, where is the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, so anywhere, right? It's my professional network, LinkedIn. So you find me there as Pavel Ferreri. I'm there. I have a Twitter account. I'm not very active there. So that's kind of the place, I think. Find me on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel, and lately this year I've been not so active there, but I do have a YouTube channel as well. So you can just search my name and find me there. And I talk about my success habits, which is something that is, I'm very passionate about. Actually, I see we're coming to the end of the time here. And if I may, for a minute or two, do
yeah.
I have? Yeah, so something that I think is very important as we're talking about, building habits, right? Over the years, I've come to realize that building the right habits help you grow, right? And become the person that you want to become. And so over the years, I've developed a set of what I call now success habits. And there are many, but there are some like keystone habits, right? Habits that if you work on that, it's going to have an exponential kind of domino effect type of impact on many different aspects of your life, right? So when it comes to health, like prioritizing my health is something that I've learned that is so important to be mentally sharp and lucid and fresh and be able to give the 100% of yourself on every interaction that you have with everyone, right? And, for yourself, right? So being healthy and basic things. So there's nothing like extraordinary about it. It's just doing the simple things, doing them well, right? So having, I've had problems sleeping actually. So I'm not going to try to say, I've had trouble sleeping for many years for whatever reasons. I think a lot and I have trouble kind of switching off. So I've invested a lot of time in improving my sleep quality, right? Having healthy nutrition, and it starts, for example, the keystone habit for improving your nutrition. It starts in the groceries. If you don't buy junk, there's going to be no junk in your house, right? If you don't buy sugar, there's no sugar. You buy fruit, you buy vegetables, you buy the right things, and when you need to eat, well, there are good things there. So building those very simple little habits, right? Like just actually I'm wearing this thing here, for example, is something that helps me correct my posture while I'm sitting on the chair, right?
I knew that exactly. When I saw you, I was like, oh, I know exactly what that is. We use that in dance as well. Yeah, it's good.
So keeping a good posture, right? It's just basic those minor little things. It's nothing humongous. It's those minor little incremental things that when you put them all together, right, you're keeping good posture. Actually, they closed the gyms, and I'm very passionate about exercising. Let me see if I can show you, right? So what did I do? And this is about resilience, right? So if the world changes and they tell you that you cannot do something, right? I created a little gym here.
That is awesome. I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can complain and say, oh, well, they closed the gyms.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a way, right? There's no excuses. So, but those little kind of minor little things, which is just doing a little bit of exercise. I don't have all the equipment, but just that little bit, right? Meditating a little bit in the morning when I, wake up. Having a little, gratitude reflection at night before I go to bed. Those little, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. Drinking water instead of soda. Those minor little things, when you put them all together, they have such a compounding effect in your life, and then you have a healthy life, right? And then you can go to like happiness, right? Well, ways to be happy. I mean, a very simple way to be happy is being humble, is being grateful. I do these gratitude meditations every day, right? Is being mindful, right? Many people talk about like, mindfulness. It's just being present, taking the moment to just be here all the time. Try, it's difficult, but just doing that, not taking yourself seriously, right? Remembering all your failures and where you're coming from and who you are, being yourself, right? And then, productivity habits that, again, minor little things, but when you put them all together, right? Like starting your day with intentions, like what is my intention for the day? And then prioritizing based on your intentions, not based on your inbox, right? Focusing on the intentions, right? Keeping focus, applying the 80-20 rule, right? Taking the time to actually analyze what you're doing through the day and saying, hey, all of this time is kind of wasted time and it's still getting me tired, right? So the president of the United Nations of any country or any great corporation has the exact same 24 hours that you and me have, right? What makes the difference on the impact that they make is how they use their time. So you need to use your time, focus on that 80%, the 20 at the bottom, just get rid of those things that are not productive, and then reinvest that time on that top 20% and keep doing that recurringly. You're going to have an incredible, again, compounding effect in your life, right? And then again,
it's so true.
Right, habits for personal success. And again, I have many, and each of them I've been working and developing them. And when you put them all together, pretty much you have re-engineered purposefully yourself into the person that you want to be, and not the person that you just kind of turned out to be. That's an incredible difference.
I like that. Be the person you want to be versus the one you turned out to be. That is huge. Yeah, I agree. It is little things. We have someone saying this is some good content, much needed right now with the quarantine. Thank you, Dylan. We appreciate it. Yeah, I think these are all really good tips. And I think, like I said, Pavel, I appreciate your time today and just your vulnerability, really sharing your story. You're not just kind of preaching ideas here. You're living it. You've done it. You're doing the work. It's not easy, but it can be done. And I love that you're sharing your story and all of these tips. So I thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to learning more from you soon.
It is my pleasure to be here with you. I'll do it any other time. I've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for everyone who took the time to listen. And looking forward to talking again soon.